Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B awesomeness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. There may be no relationship more important or occasionally more frustrating than the one between marketing and product. So product worries about what to build. Marketing worries about who will buy it, why they care, and how to bring it to market. When those teams are on their line, you get products built in a vacuum, feature-first messaging, and launches that feel more like handoffs than shared wins. And that matters even more right now because AI is accelerating product development. And I'm hearing this in call after call with Huddlers where product marketing is like suddenly product can get a new, every week if you wanted to, they could launch a new update. So it's getting crazy. And as a result, I think product marketing is moving upstream and the CMOs are increasingly accountable for growth, adoption, and revenue. So there's this conflict. Product is like cranking it out and marketing is having to deal with it. So today we're exploring what real marketing and product alignment actually looks like. When marketing should enter the product conversation, who owns customer insight, what the team should measure together, and how they can operate as one growth engine instead of two busy teams working side by side. So with that, let's bring on Michael Atalla, CMO of UiPath, who is joining this show for the very first time. Hello, Michael, and welcome.
Hi, Drew. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
So first, how are you and where are you this fine day?
Yeah, I'm in my home office just outside of Seattle, Washington. So enjoying a little bit of the sun is just getting started for us here, but we're enjoying our sort of flawless summer for those of you that have never been to the Pacific Northwest.
Well, having just been with you like literally maybe a week and a half ago, and it was lovely sunny, none of that liquid sunshine that Seattle was famous for. It was quite lovely.
Indeed. It's the right time of the year to be here. I'm glad we had you out.
So let's talk a little bit about this in software and AI, and I know we talked about this a little. Product has always been able to move fast, but now it can really move fast.
Yeah.
So how do you keep marketing close enough to product so customers can keep up with what's changing?
Yeah.
That's like five questions. Good luck with that one.
That's a big one. Yeah. Right. So I think, there are a few areas, and I mean, when you were introducing the episode, you mentioned, you talked about customer insight and you talked about sort of the speed of engineering, and you repeated that again today. I think one of the things that has become most challenging for marketing leaders is that, well, actually, it's always been true, is that sort of vocabulary tends to lag velocity, right? So products always sort of shipped faster than markets and customers could keep up with them. That's actually not AI, right? That's been true for a long time. We've always struggled in that moment where the product got to the marketplace, customers didn't know yet, especially if it's a new category or new technology or a new innovation, right? We've had this moment in time where the product was in the marketplace and the marketing teams were working to catch up to land the content. And it was never perfect. Now it's really not perfect. Right now, that speed of innovation is actually causing that cycle to happen at a pace that is impossible to keep up with. And that's actually the biggest challenge that I think AI brings. It doesn't create a new problem; it exacerbates one we already had. And so I actually think that one of the things that marketing leaders should be motivated to do and sort of inspired to do is actually start treating the concept of messaging and positioning, which is at the heart of that problem, as a product, right? It needs to move as fast as the product, which means you need to ship it like one, which means you need a version control model. You think about managing that stuff in Markdown and GitHub libraries these days. Like, you actually have to change the way you ship messaging to match the pace. And maybe it's an opportunity for us to use the technology that product is using to accelerate innovation, to accelerate messaging and positioning development. And I don't mean the content. I don't mean generating content. That's an easy place. It's an easy place to get lost. I mean in managing the process. And that actually, we treat messaging and positioning as its own agentic workflow, just like engineering is treating product development right now. We actually have an opportunity to sort of catch up a little bit and maybe fix a problem that we've had for decades.
So go deeper on that, because I want to make sure when it comes out of your mouth that it makes total sense. And yet I know many CMOs may not actually understand what you've done here. And, a lot of the conversation that we had in the huddle was about the transformation that's happening. And, sort of the bad part of AI is you're just accelerating the bad habits you already had. The good part of AI is when you start to reinvent the way you work. And it sounds like you're reinventing the way you work. So get deeper into the notion of message as product and what that looks like operationally.
Yeah, I think that let me see if I can simplify it by first talking about how I think most of us are adopting AI right now, because it might help contextualize what I mean when I say treat messaging like an agentic workflow. Most of us have started our journey with AI in personal productivity land, right? We have actually used AI as a tool to do the job we already understand that we have better, right? That's phase one of sort of AI enablement. And there's a phase two, perhaps, of that where we get good at asking AI to do things that, frankly, we didn't think it could do just a handful of months ago. And it starts doing things on our behalf that we wouldn't have time to do, or would have never thought to do, or couldn't do because of the capability of AI. But that's still a personal problem, right, or a personal solve, right? The place that I think you really break through with AI, and where we have started to break through in my organization around this problem space we're talking about here, which is messaging, is when you start looking at the actual interfaces between you and other people, or between your team and other teams, or between functional groups within the company, and start asking AI to automate the relationships, the handoffs, the decision handoffs, or the decision sort of framework between two different teams. Like, when you start asking AI to solve that setup, to take on that problem space, not the job that you have,
right,
but in fact the relationships that you have, that's when the workflow changes, where you move fast. Because look, that's where everything slows down, right? You've always been able to generate content quickly if you think about just pure messaging and positioning. Like,
right,
maybe it's faster with AI, or maybe it's different with AI, but you can always do it. You can always sit down for 2 hours and write something. That AI didn't make that notably better. But then I had to sit in a room with a product manager and bring them along in the journey, or we need to debate the finer points of that positioning framework, or I need the sales team's input. And those relationships are where everything gets slow. So that digging in, asking AI to be part of that relationship is where acceleration comes from. And that's process transformation. That's when I say make messaging an agentic workflow. It's about using AI to handle those aspects of the work.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm wondering, and we'll get to
a different episode of the show. It's a whole different episode.
It is, and we can get to that in another show. But on this one, I'm thinking, okay, the good news is you've said that marketing can keep up with products developing faster because of AI. Marketing can now keep up with that because of AI. That's the good news. Customers can't. Let's face it, they cannot. And no amount of AI will make them be able to do that necessarily. Maybe the AI is the solution for them too. So I keep wondering about, is this strategic, or is this just because we can do, like, if we were to say, how many product launches do our customers really need every year? 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe? Yeah. And so do we bundle these? Do we think about this separately? Because I feel like some cases product can do it, so they are. Marketing can do it, so you are. Now what? How do you think about the fantastic speed, but I can't get my customer to keep up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the age of product launch maybe is dead. Maybe it was already dead 2-3 years ago. But I think that the age of, the date is just sort of a milestone in a loop, in a constant loop between the product and engineering team, the marketing team, the sales team, and the customer, and then back to the product and engineering team, and keep that loop going. Like, if you treat that life cycle, per se, that loop, that feedback loop, or output loop, however you want to frame it, as the thing, those dates become less important. And then the speed that engineering is running is not really, doesn't make you frantic and doesn't make your team frantic because you're no longer date centric in the way you operate. I think that's, like to some degree we're off the topic of AI. Like AI may have created more speed, but that's actually the more important part of the relationship between product and marketing that I think is fundamental here, which is how do you actually create a relationship with your product team that is compatible with the relationship you have with your customers. And for your customers, those dates are not really part of their job, right? None of your customers are like sitting down thinking about their annual goals and writing your launch dates in their plans, right? So if you operate your entire relationship with product engineering centered around individual dates, you are not operating a customer-centric business, right? So the fundamental thing you have to think about is how do you mimic your customer's life cycle, which is an always-on technology innovation loop if you're in the tech space like I am, and build a marketing plan that maps to that. You have to teach your product team to understand that, which is a journey, because I think that product lags marketing in this evolution. They're still, of course, a product manager that ships a thing, and that date they ship it is pretty important to them. So you actually have to bring them along in the journey of that loop. And that's a leadership dynamic and a leadership conversation that I think has to take place.
So let me go at this a different way. Marketing and product working together to identify what's resonating with customers and building that and marketing that. How is that happening right now? And has that changed at all?
Yeah, that's a great one, actually. I think because
finally,
well, all these, sorry. They always tell you, I do all this PR training. You're never supposed to tell the person that asked the question that it was a good question, because they know it was a good question or they wouldn't have asked it. So good question, Drew, which you knew already. I think one of the things that I think marketing has suffered for its entire existence is this theory that most of our peers in functional peers think is that we're largely these instinct-driven sort of creative types that just live on anecdote and subjective truth as opposed to objective data. And I think that, in fact, what the irony of ironies is that if you think about the customer insight and customer input and sort of like learnings that goes inbound into the product and engineering org, there are an awful lot of product and sales anecdotes that go into that cycle, right? The number of meetings that could be occupied by one customer conversation that your head of product had in one meeting, and that you now are like or a sales rep shows up in a meeting, or an area vice president comes in and says, I just had this meeting, and now for an hour we talk about this one customer conversation, and we get rat holed into how the whole product should be reshaped around that one discussion. And I think that's a tough thing to break. I think we have historically as marketers tried to break that. Like we'll do focus groups and quantitative studies, and we'll create data that establishes customer truth. And it's actually, maybe this is controversial, it's a losing battle for marketing. Like we'll never be able to walk into a room with an area vice president and convince them that we know more about the customer than them. It's never going to happen. Like, so don't try so hard to convince them of that, but teach them things that they can't see. Like roadmaps too heavily informed by sort of conference room stories can be informed and influenced by things like upstream, right? Of what is the customer typing when nobody's watching? Like, what are they putting into that browser window? Where's their mouse? We know that cursors follow eyes. We've learned that on web research for years, right? Where is their mouse hovering on your web page when they're reading that new product information page or that new blog page? What are the LLMs answering questions with when it comes to more maybe prescient today, right? What are the LLMs answering questions with? What is the customer saying to the marketplace that has nothing to do with a conference room? Like that's the place where I think we have a real opportunity in this moment to we've been using this data for years and years, right, to inform campaign strategy. But I think that the reset right now is that is relevant to product strategy before it's relevant to campaign strategy. Like, take all that stuff that we're so good at gathering to inform and optimize our own work as marketers and transform it into an asset for product managers. That's a real opportunity there. Like, we get sellers testify to the last mile. We testify to the search bar, to the web browser, to the click, but make that a product input. That's the real opportunity.
All right. Well, I know we have lots more to cover, but we're now going to bring on Andrew Cox, who has been patiently waiting, CMO of Forrester and an industry expert who's graced our stage before to discuss budgeting. Hello, Andrew. Wonderful to see you again.
Great to see you too, Drew. Glad to be back with you.
And so where are you this fine day?
I'm in beautiful, sunny Atlanta. It's a lovely, lovely day here. So hoping to get outside to enjoy some of that.
In hot Atlanta. All right. Well, I'm just curious if you heard some of what Michael had to say. I'm wondering if any of that resonated with you.
It does. I mean, in fact, there was some really interesting things he said there around the acceleration that has come through AI and how product can deliver so much more. We're feeling that too. I think you've said that the speed at which we release things might be difficult for our clients to keep up with. We're actually not just fighting the battle for how do we keep up with our clients, but also how do we bring value to our customers. So for us, although our product is very different from some software organizations that might be out there, when you think about it in its broadest sense, it's still there to help create and deliver value to solve a customer need. So for Forrester, that includes things like research, consulting, events we may have. And the overall promise we deliver is really about driving better outcomes faster. So when you think about product at Forrester and the releases we have, it's less about how you access it, though that may change as we go through, but it's more about how do we make sure we deliver that customer value. So a lot of what Michael said there really, really resonates with me as well.
Interesting. So let's talk about what product you sort of started to define what product means at Forrester. How do you think about product alignment when the offering isn't a traditional product?
I think it's pretty, we probably just need to broaden our definition of what a product is there. I think a product, as I said, is something that solves that customer need. And so for us, the questions are really the same as they would be for anyone else. It's really, what's the problem we're solving? Who are we solving it for? What outcome is that person trying to achieve? So when marketing and product and also sales and customer success align around those answers, we can deliver a product that actually meets that need, and no matter how we deliver it or how often we deliver it. So it's really about making sure that we're unified in that aspect, whatever the underlying type of product is, whether it be that research, that consulting, or those events.
Interestingly, so in your case, because it's not software, it's sort of people and the most part, there's no limitation to, in theory, the number of products in IP that you could package and try to sell. So there must be some process, and in theory, AI could accelerate that, although yours is very much of a people expertise, right? As opposed to this. I'm just curious, is there any temptation to accelerate the pace at which you put products out in the market?
I want to separate, for us, there's a little bit of research versus product conversation here. So our research that you're talking about is seen as is delivered through our products. So the products that we have are very much around how do you access the information, whether you have, as I say, a consulting engagement, events engagement, a research engagement. But even within the research, we've got different types of offerings there, whether you have a AI only access to it, whether you have access to an individual analyst or multiple analysts who will come and speak to you around your problems, or whether you have a dedicated executive partner at the top end where you have someone who you can always turn to for whatever those questions might be. So to me, that's more of the product side, whereas the research behind it is a slightly different offering. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. There's an opportunity for us to be able to accelerate some of the research that's being produced, but that isn't done at the expense of sacrificing quality. It's so important for us as an organization to be objective, to have quality in what we put together, and to make sure that whatever we bring to market is based on the priorities of those organizations. So we do an awful lot of work with our sales organization, with our product organization, scanning the market overall to make sure that we are really delivering to client priorities, and we refresh them on a regular basis. So there are every few months, new priorities are coming out that are based on what we're hearing now. So there are things like we had some recent meetings internally around things like org design and AI and value through your different parts of the organizations. These are consistent themes that are really emerging that we're hearing right now. And we're putting new and deeper research together in some of these areas because we're responding to the market needs that we're hearing.
Yes, and that's funny because those are very much the needs of the CMO Huddles community. I'm wondering, so when Michael and I were talking, he was talking about the power of that single customer conversation and what we sometimes call anecdata, which in many cases, in certain marketing opportunities, those are the stories that carry the day.
Yes.
So it was funny, and I didn't push back at all on Michael on that, but I'm imagining that you have a similar challenge. Somebody could be talking, an analyst could be talking to a customer, or and suddenly that customer said, "Well, what about this?" And then suddenly, oh, we got to make a right turn over here because this one customer talked about it.
Absolutely. And it's not just the salesperson; it's often that hippo situation, the highest paid person's opinion, that definitely carries the day in a lot of conversations. I actually think underlying this, it gets to a core question of what roles and responsibilities are across the organization. So marketing in some organizations can just exist to be a communications and an enablement channel. And then you can be expected that and product can sit in the same situation. So if it's a really strong sales-led organization, that's very difficult to overcome. But what you need to do is think about the roles that exist across the organization. So what's the responsibility for the product organization? What's the responsibility for the sales organization? What's the responsibility for the marketing organization? So for me, marketing should always be bringing the market insight, the competitive context, that kind of messaging discipline. Sales may well bring some of the strong understanding of customer needs, but you expect your product organization, your marketing organization to be able to bring that together and start to really think about patterns. It shouldn't just be the one-off thing that drives the day. We should be talking about patterns, and below that, we should be talking about customer value as well. We should really be saying what drives the most customer value, rather than this is one standalone incident that we've spoken to. Is this something that's replicable on a broader basis?
And it's funny, and patterns are something. In theory, AI can be very good at recognition, but often it's the opposite. You see, what humans are very good at, or creative humans are very good at, is connecting dots that couldn't have been connected, where there's no logical thread, and suddenly you go, there it is. And next thing you know, we have a margarita. I mean, we put things together that might not have actually thought. Tequila and fruit, of course, that'll work. Everybody loves that. So I'm curious, if from your standpoint, do you feel like marketing still has a chance of seeing those patterns with or without AI? And if so, because in some ways, if you can use AI to do this, anybody could do it, not just marketing, right? So where's in this whole process, where is the human part of this marketing and product sort of alignment? What's that come down to?
Well, that's an interesting question, Drew. At risk of saying what Michael did around good questions here, I think the AI portion is not something we should get hung up on as much as the fact that who's responsible for delivering that work and who's responsible for doing what, because it can get surfaced in lots of different areas. Actually, the bigger thing is the lens at which people use to look at the challenge that's in front of them. Typically, product will look in a features and functions lens. Sales will look specific to the individual clients that they've got in front of them. Marketing will look at the broader market perspective. And those lenses are still valuable, even if you're looking at the same underlying data. The questions you'll use if you're using AI to get there, the topics that you'll be uncovering, the way that you're reviewing that data is not necessarily going to be unified, because you come with an underlying perspective that is different. And actually what we need to do is bring those together, and we need to think about the structures and cadences on which you can bring those different perspectives and make them one. So for us as an organization, for instance, we have bi-weekly go-to-market alignment meetings where we discuss the biggest challenges that are going on at a given time and how do we look to address those. And that feeds into a product innovation board where we approve and stage gate activities that need to be put forward. bringing those perspectives together in a rhythm like that actually helps you make sure, even if you've got the same underlying data, those perspectives are elevated, and you can do the prioritization work you need to do of what that go-to-market and that product roadmap looks like.
Interesting. Yes, and critical, and in some ways remarkably human. Which again, you're selling to humans, we're selling to humans. That there is that factor. So, all right. Absolutely. Well, with that, it is time to talk about CMO Huddles. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders, and that has a logo featuring penguins. Wait, what? Yes. Well, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. And that's probably not news to anybody who's heard this show before or actually seen me talk at any moment in time in the last 6 years. Anyway, the leaders in CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest job in the C-suite. One might even argue the coldest job in the C-suite. Andrew, you've been with CMO Huddles quite a long time, a few years, and I know you're incredibly busy. I'm wondering if you could share a specific example of how Huddles has helped you.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing overall is it's a safe space to explore and learn. There's so many, the world is moving so fast right now. I've got so many early stage ideas that it's very difficult to share with peers internally or with your team internally. You don't want to set off a whole scurry of work around something that you haven't thought through first, that you haven't really worked out to get it ready for prime time. CMO Huddles helps me explore some of those and gives me some insight and perspective on it. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Literally the expert huddles that you've had recently around the use of AI. You had Ryan at Lumen, you had Lisa at 2X. They are so practical, and they're really helping me think differently about my planning in 2027. So it's been fantastic support in those areas.
I love it. Well, I appreciate that and appreciate you and your ongoing contribution by showing up on shows like this, as well as at some of our leader huddles. Michael, you're really new to huddles, and mainly for you, it's been in person. But maybe if you have any thoughts on CMO, your experience so far, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew highlighted one of my favorite elements of it in the past sort of 3 or 4 or 5 months, which is the expert huddles on and use of AI in marketing. I missed the one with Ryan, who actually, his office is about 8 floors below me in the same office building. So I guess I should catch up with him at some point. But I actually think that, so much of what we're doing right now in marketing, as it transforms as rapidly as the technology does, is making decisions about things that will impact our organizations in fairly sensitive ways. And I think that sometimes even our direct reports are not necessarily an audience that we feel very comfortable talking to about some of these things until we have formulated a position that we feel like is defensible. And so that conversation, I think this echoes what Andrew was saying, the opportunity to have that conversation with a group of people who are going through exactly that thing at the same time and formulate some of those initial thoughts and that framework or way of thinking first, so that you can bring something more well-developed to bear is just incredibly valuable. And we talked about it, I think, when you were in Seattle, Drew. It's the best kind of group therapy that I can imagine.
I love it. Oh, well, thank you both. So if you're a B2B marketing leader who wants to build a stronger peer network, gain recognition as a thought leader, and maybe even get your very own stress penguin that looks like this. Michael has at least 2, I think, now. Do yourself a favor, check out CMOHuddles.com. And oh, by the way, our Super Huddle, October 22nd, 23rd, is not to be missed. Limited to 100 senior marketing leaders. Incredible agenda. Can't be more excited about it. Check that out at CMOHuddles.com. Okay, back to the topic at hand. So before we can actually solve this, we need to sort of find the places where it breaks down in your experience, not necessarily where you are now, but in the past, where it breaks down between marketing and product. And then when we do that, then how do we fix it before it starts to affect market perception? Because that probably means that a product got to market either too early, too late, or inadequately. But so talk a little bit about that, and feel free to jump in, either one of you.
Andrew, you want to start? Go for it.
Okay, well, I'll echo a little bit of what I said earlier around perspective. I think marketing teams naturally focus on their audiences, the positioning and the demand, where product teams typically focus on features and functionality and delivery. Now, because they come in with this lens, if they're not aligned, if they're not working together, what you often see happen is product come to market with something and marketing chasing to keep up. I think Michael talked about, how the clients can't keep up, and although we're getting quicker on the messaging, we're still kind of behind our product delivers. I think that's exacerbated now. So in my mind, the solution is really twofold to that. First one is the clear roles and responsibilities that I mentioned already, but beyond that, it's also shared goals, it's shared metrics, it's frequent communication, and to me, the big thing when you look at those goals is really it's being aligned around customer outcomes rather than our individual functional priorities. When it's focused on the customer's outcomes, it's much easier to stop those misunderstandings and stop those breakdowns happening.
Right. Does this matter to the customer? Are we filling a need that they actually had? I wonder if we flip this question around, Michael, and maybe you could walk us through, maybe there has been a recent product that you've launched that went really well, and you could speak to that, or we could go back to the problem scenario.
I don't know if I could be, I think I'm going to go to if I could stick with the problem scenario, I'd love to build.
Okay, let's do that.
Talking about actually, like I could celebrate our awesomeness, I suppose. But I actually like, I like the one of the things that you're getting at, I think, Andrew, is this idea that marketing has always been the aggregator of customer truth, right? Well, we've had this ability to bring together multiple sources of data and sort of state quantitatively what the customer believes, what they need, what they care about. Like that's been a role marketing's played for decades, right? I think that one of the things that's happening right now, which is affecting the ability for us to be successful in this relationship, is the change in the role definition of product management and product marketing, which is at the heart of that relationship, right? So, and I think this is a thing that marketing leaders should be sensitive to as we think about a healthy product and marketing relationship, is the evolution of product. Like historically, most of the optimization between product and marketing was about the gap between product management and product marketing, how far apart it was, how close together it was, how aligned, how misaligned. Like that's where that alignment took place, really. And that's changing as product managers start to shift right away from the engineers, as the engineers become AI builders, and as product marketers have to think about their role in that context. And I think that relationship is a thing that is happening right now that is creating challenges in the way that we have the muscle we've built over the course of a decade or 2 decades is sort of being forced to be sort of rebuilt somewhat differently. So that may be also, Drew, a topic for an entirely different episode, but I think it is a thing that is happening right now that affects this in a very discrete way.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it makes me wonder, where does product marketing sit, at least in your organization, Michael?
It reports into me in my organization. But it has reported into product at UiPath previously, and so it is definitely moved around. And at my last company, it reported into product, and it's a constant debate. But I actually think no matter where it reports, there is still a role definition to be established of the role of product management and the role of product marketing. And I think as the sort of middle of sort of product insight, customer insight and definition, and the last mile being sort of like messaging and positioning, the middle section that product marketing used to carry, which was like the product explainers, that's changing pretty dramatically right now because of things like generative AI, which is creating a redefinition opportunity for both roles. And I think if you want to know the most important thing that any CMO right now should be doing in the context of what I'm talking about, is they are sitting down with their chief product officer, head of product, whatever you call it, and having a transparent conversation about this evolution. Like right now, talking to them about the future of product management in their eyes and your view of the future of product marketing. Because if you don't, I promise you'll get caught at some point misaligned in a really painful way for the organization. I'm super sensitive to this, and I've been caught in that in that space.
And even knowing about it, you've been
100%. It's a hard thing to navigate right now.
Fascinating. And I have a thought on this, but I wanted to just give Andrew a chance to sort of weigh in on that, if that sparked any thoughts.
Just to say ditto.
Okay.
I feel the same pressures. It's really interesting. Michael's done a fantastic job of articulating the challenge that we're facing as well right now. We don't call our product marketing team product marketing. We call them portfolio marketing because they look across the breadth of what we deliver across our research and our product. But the same intersections, the friction in those areas and the lack of clarity now has definitely emerged. I think that conversation has to be had, if you haven't had it already, very, very soon, because the expectations are different. The expectations on being able to act very, very quickly with all the data that we've got right now are huge. And if you look at your chief executive, they're not going to care about who's delivering that work. So you need to make sure that across the organization that the roles are very clear and that people are not stepping too much on each other's toes, but again, the right answer for our customers.
So, and that I'm thinking back to a story of a product that I launched, had good fortune to launch. And I always, since then, have been thinking about, if marketing is doing its job, it's baking the marketing idea into the product. And the simplest example I have is, so we worked with Panasonic Personal Computer Company many, many years ago when I ran an agency. And it was a heavy machine launched with a name that which was a number. We realized that, oh my God, this is a really rugged notebook. There's not a fully functional rugged notebook. And we named it the Tough Book. And right then and there, we baked in the marketing idea even into the name. And all we had to do was prove how tough it was. And frankly, it grew to be about $1 billion product line, because we were able to, from the very beginning, bake the idea in. And I'm wondering, that's ancient history, Drew. That doesn't happen anymore. You can't do something like that now. But it feels like if marketing and product marketing was really good, they would make sure that there was a marketable idea built into the product. Is that just, forget it, Drew, you're old?
No, I think look, I'm always jealous of anybody who has had an opportunity to market a product that has direct consumer appeal, because I think there are some levers you get to pull that maybe are harder than enterprise B2B infrastructure technology. But I still think what you're getting at is the ongoing need for a metaphor in the way your marketing and messaging is built, like something that actually customers can relate to, that connects to the way they think about things. Our biggest, most successful product launch of the last year and a half or so is a product that helps customers orchestrate business across process orchestration and automation. And we called it Maestro. And that's the right metaphor. And it is, in fact, perfectly named, and it is well understood. And when we talk about it, it connects with the customer's pain. And so that metaphor is useful. And that is where I think the truth of whether, the answer to the question whether AI can actually replace product marketers and marketers' ability to create good messaging, the answer is no. There is a human side of this that creating that perfect metaphor, I don't think AI is going to do. I don't know that AI would have come up with Tough Book. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I
we'll
don't
never
know.
know. We'll never truly know. But I do think understanding the customer to the degree that you can find that metaphor and actually, or maybe it's not a metaphor and it's literal in the Tough Book case, but to find that and discover it and bake it in, gosh, that's a incredible aspiration that I think we should all have.
And just for the record, it was a B2B product. U.S. government and police forces were the largest customers, because the military take these things out in the field.
I should have said end user direct.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
And I like the Maestro, and I appreciate that. It was an old school, clear example. We do have a question for the audience, and I'm just going to go at it because it's exciting. Thank you for the question. How do you justify the headcount spend for product marketing to the C-suite and board? They are expecting high pipeline spend and low headcount spend. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I'll jump in. It's like I guess Andrew will probably have a more Andrew, you live in a world where quantitative answers to questions like that are actually easier to come by. I bet you will have a point of view that is more informed than mine. I will say that it's not about product marketing specifically for me. I think it's part of the broader question of marketing. So I've never had a C-suite or board conversation that was explicit about product marketing other than the one with my boss, the CEO, who asks me by discipline about marketing. But that is not a broader C-suite or board discussion. There is the broader conversation of what the right size of marketing is relative to revenue overall, the organizational capacity, the leadership dynamics, like all those things. But I haven't had to justify product marketing discreetly to get to the question. I do think that getting caught in a marketing conversation, funding marketing relative to pipeline is a slippery slope. Like, you've got to reposition the value of the company away from that. Some of the things that Andrew and I talked about earlier about how we bring customer value, customer insight, how we bring objective data into the product planning cycle. Like, if you can establish things like that, your chief product officer is going, no, I need this organization because they bring me discrete insight about customers that I can't glean from a conference room, then you're not having a conversation about pipeline. You're having a conversation of how marketing is actually building the value proposition of your product portfolio. You have to, as a marketing leader, be good at that. And it's not a game. It's not trickery. It's truth. And you just have to be really good at stating that truth, or you will get squashed by the pipeline conversation.
So I want to jump at Tamara. I appreciate your question. It feels like there is a math answer to this, which is, so if we're looking at future revenue Q4, some percentage is going to be current customer, some percentage is net new. Current customer is going to be either retention or upsell. Well, guess what? Product and product marketing will drive retention and upsell for sure, as well as have an impact on pipeline, particularly when you have a new product that is going after a new market. All of those are quantifiable business dollars that, in fact, if you say, we get rid of product marketing, we get rid of product launches, do you want to do that? I mean, and by the way, a little more incremental success as a result of product marketing, getting either a new product or enhancement that has a percentage impact on reducing churn and a percentage impact on upselling, that's money in the bank. That is pipeline. So we just can't look at pipeline as net new all the time. But even then, I would argue that you could, if we have a new product targeting a new group of people, that's pipeline too. So I'm off my high horse. Andrew, get on yours.
Well, I think underlying the question is actually, what's the role of marketing generally in your organization? It's probably not a question about product marketing in its own right, as much as what is marketing supposed to do overall for the organization. So if you're in an organization where really you're positioned in a supporting role, where you literally just drive communications, some enablement and some execution, I can absolutely see that conversation coming up. If you've got a strong product management organization, you could see people asking that question, is this an overlap? But if you're really in a more driving position for the marketing organization, if you're accountable for the growth itself, you really own customer value creation. So it becomes about how you drive market demand, how you drive preference, how you drive business performance. If you're having those kind of conversations, I don't think that product marketing conversation is going to come up in the same way. So I'd actually start at a higher level, start to talk about that conversation around what do you expect marketing to deliver for the organization, and then you can start to get into the product marketing question. And the other thing I'd say beyond that is someone on one of the prior CMO huddles said something good around a budget being a reflection of your strategy. Is basically in numbers. And I think anyone who's got a product marketing headcount should be being able to describe the market demand, the preference, the value, customer value creation that's associated with that, and be assigning some budget to it as well around how that gets delivered, whether that's in programs or whether that's in that headcount. And if you're carving that away, I think it makes it very difficult for marketing to do its job effectively for the organization.
Yeah, I think that was Lisa Cole. You're right. It's such a good quote, reflection of strategy and numbers. I love that position. And then I think there's one other thought. I'm going to throw this one at Michael, which is, look, the last thing you want is the board to be looking at your, like, say, your head count. You can look at it on an aggregate basis, no problem. But on a micro basis, like, why do you have this person? Or why do you, it's no different than them saying, why are you spending money here and not money there? I mean, those are not conversations that you want to be having at the board level. You want to be having, here's our strategic plan. Here is how marketing is going to help achieve those things. These are the metrics that we're going to be monitoring. And how we get there, if we agree on where we want to go, that's kind of what we're supposed to do, right? I mean, Michael, how's that work?
Yeah, I think that look, there is a board discussion that is taking place right now across CMO, sort of whatever your session in the board meeting is, like, which is about the capacity of marketing. Like, we shouldn't like, that's happening right now. It's happening with other disciplines as well, the capacity of sales, the capacity of engineering, like, and that's directly correlated to, you know, AI. And that is truth. And it's one of the things that as Andrew was talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is that your roles as a marketing leader, if you do not think of like organizational capacity planning as a fundamental part of that, and you don't, in fact, I would say amongst the top 3 or 4 things you are responsible for, you're probably missing the mark right now as a marketing leader. Maybe it was always on the list. It's probably top 3 or 4 right now. And so you should be able to walk into a board meeting with an organizational capacity plan. And to be clear, I'm not talking about upsizing, downsizing. I'm not talking about riffing people. I'm talking about the size and shape of a marketing org in the current climate and in the context, to Andrew's point, of the organization you exist in. If you can't outline that to your board, then you're opening the door for them to go, why do you have this person? Why do you have this person? So like, give them a plan. And then get downstream on everything you said, Drew, which is, here's the impact, here's how we measure success, here's the things we're doing. Yeah, of course, do those things. But first, tell them why you exist and how you exist and what your strategy for that existence is. Then you quiet the noise.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting because I see more, it's less of a strategic move and it's just, oh, we didn't backfill these 3 roles. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the AI has filled in for those, but that's not what you're describing. And I would love to, that's another opportunity. Organizational capacity planning. Ishar, we got to do a show on that and what that looks like, because I have no idea. That one I can't answer. All right. Well, I have 2 more questions for you. What's one thing you wish every CMO understood about product, and one thing you wish every product leader understood about marketing? Go ahead, Andrew.
So one thing that I wish, on the first question, it's definitely customer value, basically. It's all about making sure that the product delivers the value for our clients. It's not about delivering features and functions. We need to get out of being a release cycle driven organization, if that's where you are, and instead be a customer value driven organization. So that's the first thing I'd say. And from the product to the marketing side, on what I'd ask the product to think about marketing, I think it's really about making sure that there's a shared engagement early. It can't be a case that marketing can come in and create messaging once a product's already built. We need the messaging and the product experience to map to each other, because there's no way you can close that gap between promise and delivery if marketing's late to the party there. We should be doing that very early, making sure that it's not an issue of marketing just driving campaign work that operates totally in a silo from it.
So, and just to hear correctly, so because this was a question I didn't ask, but so you're advocating for marketing to be pretty much there at the get-go. Oh, we're thinking about developing a new product, and you're sitting down together and saying, this is the strategy, this is the customer opportunity that it's targeted at, and together we're going to make this a success.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. In that discovery stage, marketing has to be embedded there to make sure that you've got the right definitions, so that you know what you're both going to be delivering and that it does serve that customer.
Right. Well, and it's funny because I could see I had a product saying, well, that's why I want product marketing report to me, because they're going to be in that conversation because they're in my department, which is hilarious, right? But anyway, Michael, anything to add on one thing you wish every CMO understood about product and one thing you wish every product leader understood about marketing?
I mean, yeah, I'll say, I think that I wish every marketing leader understood that the product team actually, the level to which they care about the customer experience goes much further than I think most marketing leaders assume. I think we're very quick to dismiss product teams as being focused on their features and functions. And I have experienced the very best of product leaders being incredibly deeply insightful about the end-to-end experience they're providing their customers. And I think when you start to trust that at the beginning and have productive conversations as marketing leaders about that overall journey for the customer, and in fact, educate them and give them more data to use in that journey mapping to the very first question we answered, I think that you end up with a very, very robust product leader who can do very, very good work on behalf of the company. On the other side, I think that I wish product leaders believed that marketers, despite the marketing title, actually understood technology. I think that we are often dismissed as not able to grok what either the product team or the customers grok. And I think that when we do grok that, we are a much more powerful utility for the company. And most of the time, we probably know about 100% more than is assumed we know. And I think both of these things lead to the starting point of trust that we operate in the relationship. And I think both of those things, if true, just put us in the right footing for a more productive partnership.
Yeah, it's funny, as you're talking, I'm thinking of various CMO conversations we've had over the last years. And there are some leaders who say, everybody's got to be able to answer this question, take this quiz on the product, and they also have to know these numbers. Everybody in the marketing department needs to know these numbers. And that way, if the CEO walks by, they're not going to be caught flat-footed. I love it. All right. One final takeaway for CMOs trying to build stronger alignment between marketing and product. And Andrew, will let you go first.
So I'll go back to, it's all about the customer again. Keep the customer at the center of every single conversation. So because both sides, as Michael clearly articulated, are very focused on the customer needs, customer outcomes, and that customer value. Once you are, the alignment becomes so much easier. The strongest organizations I've probably worked with and seen don't necessarily have perfect processes, but they're aligned because everyone is committed to solving that customer challenge, and everything else really follows from that.
Love it. By the way, you could have just replaced AI in that sentence too, in my opinion, and you'd have a stronger AI strategy. Michael, final takeaway on stronger alignment between marketing and product.
I mean, I'll lean into the why you do all this stuff. I think, aligned orgs can make bets that misaligned orgs cannot make. That's the reason you need to do this work. Like, everybody out there is trying to create a category, join a category. We've got Andrew here. A lot of times we're trying to join a category that his organization defined for us. You don't get to stake claims to categories unless the company's language is aligned between product marketing and sales, that you all say the same thing the same week, the same day, or the same week. Like, this alignment allows you to make bets that you cannot make without it.
I love it. And with that, I want to thank both Michael and Andrew. You're amazing sports. I appreciate all your input on this. And thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we'll be talking about public company CMOing with Scott Morris, Monica Kumar, and JD Dillon. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Yashar Cuevas. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Melissa Caffrey. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit cmohuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, reminding B2B CMOs everywhere, no matter your challenges, it's warmer in the huddle.